Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I have with me a very special guest, Dr. Lulu Shimke. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much for appearing on my show. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Yeah, sure. I'm a naturopathic physician. And for your listeners that don't know what that is, basically, I'm an alternative medicine doctor and I work on healing the body from the root, right? So, what the root cause is of the dysfunction, not treating the symptoms because that suppresses the body's natural ability to heal, but actually, diving deep and figuring out what was the original cause or what's the cause of the dysfunction. So, that's kind of what a naturopathic doctor is. And we use a big toolbox. So we use alternative medicine with plants and homeopathy, lots of different things to help us to really help the body's natural ability to heal. And my specific like love and genre or niche is I really help patients with hormones. So especially women working with hormonal issues, the thyroid, the adrenals. And then I also work a lot with leaky gut because that's a big one right now with patients who are having a lot of dysfunction in the gut. And I work with mental health, so fatigue, anxiety, depression. That's a huge component because I work a lot with the veteran community. And so that's kind of like where I kind of fall into the category of what I love to work with. And then when you love to do something, that's how your patients thrive. And I'm also a specialist in genetics. So I work with patients to look at their genetics, their DNA,
So,
help to find a new map or roadmap. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, we're back. We're back. It was,
Oh, okay. Did
it
we
was a
cut out for a
little,
second?
yeah, a little lag, yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. So I was talking about how I work with patients with genetics. So when I work with the DNA, it gives us that blueprint, right? Our DNA blueprint of how we can help our body in a physical way in prevention to really see what's going on at that deep cellular level. So that's like my really fun scientific part of my body and brain. And yeah, that's kind of like a little bit about me. And I have a new book. Of course, I can't forget to mention my new book. It's a
Yeah,
Detox Nourish and Activate, which
such a great
is,
cover, yeah.
yeah, thank you. And Plant and Vibrational Medicine for Energy, Mood, and Love. So that's my new book. It just came out. So I'm super excited.
Cute. So, um, just lost my train of thought. Let me get. So, yeah. Sorry. So there is you're essentially a multidisciplinarian
Hmm.
in your clinic or your practice.
Yep.
Um, so how do you have different specialists working side by side or counselors that are medical counselors that do some part of the job?
I used to, before COVID, I had a large clinic here in Asheville, North Carolina, where I work. I had a clinic with 18 practitioners, and that was that kind of like different modality where I could refer out. But now I have my practice solely telemedicine, which I was actually moving into before COVID because I want to be able to reach people all around the world in a different way. And so I was already preparing for that, of course, which is great. So what I do now, if I see a patient who needs a specialist, I'll refer out. So whether that's counseling, like you mentioned, or maybe they need to see a GI specialist, or maybe they need to have some X-rays done. Anything, I just refer out. And if they're not in my city, then I make sure they have a primary care physician on their team that can then help in that particular way.
Yeah, so when did you start getting interested in naturopathy or
Mm-hmm.
alternative kind of medicine and
Right.
practice?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So I first, I was a massage therapist. That's kind of like I guess the stem of what I was originally doing. And that was, wow, it's been a while ago. Like a while ago, let's just say a while ago. And so when I was a massage therapist, I was learning, or I started taking classes in herbal medicine and essential oils. And I really started to like love them and really diving deep into them. And that was like over 15 years ago, almost 20, I think now. And so from there, I really discovered that I couldn't kind of like diagnose or treat them in a way that I wanted to, because you can't do that with those specific like certifications. So I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do next? So I started looking for an alternative school, or an alternative medicine school. And that's when I started to learn about naturopathic medicine. And naturopathic medicine is all over the world. There are not like massive amounts of schools, but there are different schools. And so from there, I was able to really dive deep into like bringing all those things together in a way that was like perfect for what I wanted to do.
Yeah, so from what you studied and what you learned on your own, um, when you read different books, and I'm sure there are books that are contextual, that are
Right.
material.
You can see them on my shelf behind me.
No, yeah, but there are texts that are raw material, that are
Hmm.
things that are essential,
Hmm.
fundamentals, and there are supplements, shall we say. There are books
Hmm.
that you read for your soul and for the interest you take in that subject. So,
Hmm.
what were the different methods or things you read from those kinds of, uh, shall we say, apocryphal books that are
Hmm.
not in the main stream, shall we say?
Wow. I mean, there's so many. I just to backtrack for a minute there, I before I went to massage school, I was living at a yoga retreat center, and I was learning all about yoga and meditation. And so, in that context, like you said, that's when I really started to dive deeper into the spiritual side of myself and my love, and really do the self work. And from there, I think that's where I really have those books, right? And so all about the chakras and the crystals. And I can't think of any. It's early where I am. I can't think of particular titles, but I do love also working with animal medicine, so animal spirit medicine. So there's different books, and I can send them to you. You can put them in the show notes too.
Mm,
But I also am like a huge lover of books, and I'm always buying books. I like hoard books. This is like a quarter of my collection, I think, because there's so much great
yeah,
stuff
me
out
too.
there.
Me too. This is
Yeah.
just one of the libraries that I have. I have 10 like this. Or
Well, that's
yeah.
great. Yeah, and I think, in some ways it's a lost art in one aspect, because people are going more digital, but then it also provides us a space for reaching more people that can't have the space for
Yeah,
books,
I want
you know.
something I can hold in my hand. I don't want.
Right.
I can't. I can't scroll through. I can't be on the screen all day. I'm
Right.
already on the screens all of the
I
day, so
know.
I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And it's also a different way of reading, right? When you read something, like we said, like my book in the paper format, it's really a different connection from that connection to your fingertips, to your brain. It's a very different way of learning. And I think our bodies and brains are adapting to new ways of learning all the time. And so I think there's probably going to be that some merge. But to get back to answer your question about the spiritual books or that kind of side, I think I'm always diving deeper, always looking for new information, but I'm sharing what I learned. So from that spiritual perspective of meditation, yoga, spirituality in general, I encompass that in all the work that I do with patients. I feel like it's a huge component of health. You have to address the whole body, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the mental, all of that. If you just work on one aspect, you're never going to have healing. It's just, you have to go to that deeper level. And my book talks about that too.
Mm. So, can you please elaborate or elucidate different chapters in your book that
Hmm.
try to paint a different picture, shall we say? All the different books about naturopathy and spirituality and the new age and stuff like this. Um, I take it with a grain of salt, of
Mm-hmm.
course, but I'm surprised each time that there are real deep uh, truths, shall we say, to some of the things, because I tend to stick to
Mm-hmm.
core text of every kind of branch or subject with anything or discipline, because I don't know much. I'm still young and I'm still learning. So I
We're
stick to
always
the
learning.
yeah, I stick to the core text, and I don't want to start developing into more and more complicated things with that subject. So I, what I want to ask you is a very complex and very contentious question, which is uh, how we make the world, transform the world into one big clinic, shall we say, but one that is not uh, outwardly clinic, but
Mm-hmm.
inwardly is clinical and therapeutical. So how
Mm-hmm.
do we do something like this?
Right. Well, I think, the first part of that is we have to be like, activated. And I think that's one aspect that, so first we have to work through, like you were asking about kind of like how my book addresses that. So first we have to address the trauma in our system. And we all have some type of trauma, whether that's a genetic trauma in our family lineage, or it's something that's particularly like happened to us in our lifetime. Whatever it is, we have to address it. We have to acknowledge it. So that's kind of like step one, is working through that. And then through the book, it talks about different stages of addressing the brain, which is the mood aspect, the adrenal system, which is the energy, and then the heart, which is love. So we have to have those connections between the brain, the heart, and the adrenal system, which grounds us to the earth, to be able to have that connection for healing. So when we have those three systems activated, the detox, nourish, and activate part of the book, which stands for DNA, the first two, we're activating the DNA at the cellular level, allowing us to go in and turn on cells that haven't been turned on, is the best way to describe it. Because if there's lots of studies that have been done that we don't use our whole brain, right? We have this huge, massive brain that can do tons of stuff, but we don't use the whole thing. It's the same way with our body and our DNA. We have DNA that hasn't been activated yet. I'm getting way out there, but this is what the book is about. We have DNA that
Please do, yeah.
yeah, hasn't been activated because we're not ready, whatever it is, or our bodies have been physically suppressing it or emotionally suppressing it because we're not ready. So this book is revolutionary in that it activates the DNA in a way to help the planet, the light of the planet, the vibration of the planet, the healing of the planet, to be activated in a way that hasn't before, which is the step of the future, because you're talking about the health or the clinic of the planet. We have to, as a collective, be activated in a new way to have our DNA turned on so that we can communicate in a new way. Because that was like, if we're talking about COVID, it was a huge aspect of change and sadness for the planet. But in one way, it actually, it's accelerating us into a new place. So the book kind of like is part of that. It's helping us to change and shift. And we have to have different parts of our brain, different parts of our heart, and different parts of our adrenal system to be activated. So within the book, there's 11 interventions for each of those systems to detox the system, nourish the system, and activate the system using aromatherapy, herbal medicine, meditations, animal medicine, mudras, which are symbols of the hands. There's audio meditations you can link up to. So there's different ways that you activate the system. So that's kind of like the key component of the book in the revolutionary aspect.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a little bit of an interest in the life of the Buddha and the teachings of the
Mm-hmm.
Buddha. I have a friend who is a professor who wrote a great book that was his dissertation about
Mm-hmm.
about a Buddhist sage, a very important one called the Longchampa.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great teacher. Eh, he taught a kind of branch of Buddhism that is very popular in some aspects. He's
Mm-hmm.
from the 14th century, so a lot of things were lost to time. Um, so I think about what the message of the Buddha was trying to say, to try to get away from uh, or urbanity, shall we
Mm-hmm.
say, being in
Right.
a urban cities in a cluster of concrete with
Mm-hmm.
people jammed, uh, stuck to each other like sardines,
Right.
not being able literally to breathe. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think about trying? I know that human beings are adaptive creatures,
Mm-hmm.
species, but
Right.
there is a limit. There is a line that you can't. You know that the flame will the candle flame will rip the cord,
Mm-hmm.
the rope at some point. So what do you think about trying to? I know it's not your subjects and it's not mine. It's not my profession. What do you think about the integration, trying to come up with these kinds of megalopolis that are integrating the nature and the technology and advancement? What do you think of those kinds of solution?
What are you talking specifically about, the kind of the evolution of science and medicine together? I'm not quite sure I'm
Yeah,
understanding your question.
I'm trying. Maybe we're talking about maybe the profession of a biotech, but
Oh, okay. Hmm.
yeah, but I don't want to delve into the practical side or the
Right.
logistical side. I want to focus on the philosophical, theoretical side, shall we say, of the discussion.
Yeah, right, totally. I think, that's a wide subject. And I think that we're discovering there's different ways to turn on, or, biohack, that's a term that is used as well,
Mm.
to turn on our body. And I think we have to use our judgment in ways that, is this something that's honoring and serving us? How are we going to be using that technology in a way that advances us in a healthy way for our body, and doesn't like shift our body too much from its natural state, but shifts us into a state of energy and vibration. And so I think, for instance, like stem cell work and stem cell therapy, I think that we need to be able to use the place of science in a way that honors our full, like, whether that's our belief system or our health system, but allows us to move forward. And we're in a place, and with technology in 2021, where we have so many different things that are happening at this accelerated rate, and it's allowing us to accelerate. We can't stay, just like people like, oh, what's a cell phone, right? There was a time when people didn't even know what a cell phone was, if we
Yes,
look back, right? So we have to have that technology to move
I
forward.
still
And I
don't
do,
know what a cell phone is. You
right,
know?
yeah. um, I do think that there can be, I personally, and then, this is just my opinion, I personally believe there is the crossroads that are needed for us to move forward. But I think we need to be careful in that we're not using any, like, kind of like, I don't know the term for it, like black technology, like technology that doesn't come from a true place of love and spirit and connection. Like, that's the judgment place. Does
Yeah,
that make sense? Like, it has
yeah,
to be like a pure,
destructive. Yeah.
yeah, it has to be a pure science, or a pure something that's coming from a really in place of intention and truth for health. And so that way it will help us move forward. If it's not, then I would suggest just not using
Yeah,
it.
I have an analogy that I don't know if it's pertinent or proper to the conversation or specifically this topic, whereby the Buddhist monks or the Shinto, the
Hmm.
religion of Japan, the monks
Hmm.
would dismantle the temples every 20 years and rebuild them. And I thought
Right.
that's insanity. Why? It is a relic, it is a heritage. And they say, no, you have to purify the soul of the temple itself, and you rebuild it
Mm.
exactly by the proper measurements and all the IKEA,
Mm-hmm.
instructions.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
um, so I thought that was insanity, but now I understand. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
the destructive side of technologies like that, you know,
Right. Yeah, we have to have the
maybe,
black and the white, like you're
yeah,
saying. Yeah, there has to be, and I think if you look at that from that cellular perspective, it's exactly that. We have to break down something, so to speak, and to enable us to move forward into a new space and time, because that's like, what we're seeing on the planet. We have to have, it's just evolution. We have to have some change, and sometimes we need to have a start fresh from a clean slate instead of it being like, muddy and cloudy. We need to be able to see clearly, and sometimes it does start back at square one. Was it working? No. Well, let's have another try at
yes,
it.
yes. That's also, I'm thinking a lot about Asia. I'm also based in Asia currently. It's a contentious issue on what side of Asia
Right.
exactly the Middle East is situated. But
Mm-hmm.
so I'm thinking about the idea of reincarnation, that
Mm-hmm.
we try. There is a another Buddhist but it's also a Hinduistic term that's called samsara. And
Mm-hmm.
samsara means the reincarnation of the soul,
Mm-hmm.
the cycle of the soul that fails to achieve its goal in this
Mm-hmm.
current life is, shipped off into the
Mm-hmm.
next one, and depends on the karma, depends on the
Mm-hmm.
good, on the bad, and the bad things that you did.
Right.
That dictates your situation in that life and your stature. So
Right.
it's very important, I think, to understand this, that we don't know our past lives, and it is important to try to do the best in this one.
That's right. Yeah, totally true. Yeah, and I think it's a very interesting topic when we're talking about karma and reincarnation. I think when we're talking about our body, we're just a vibrational being in this physical body, right? We're just incorporating it in some way. And I think we've had, there's lots of different philosophies, and I believe that we have had different lifetimes where we have had different knowledge, right, come in. And I personally am at a space in my life where I'm ready to, like, with my book, like, ready to get the knowledge out that I've accumulated over many lifetimes. It's my purpose to help people to learn and to move forward and in a new place. I also think that we don't need to get like wrapped up in the karma, right? I think we need to, like, okay, great, like, yeah, like, this is what happened, but we don't need to be like, this is what, if I don't fix this, I can't move forward. I think that's a little bit like an older thought process. And I believe that we can be in this present moment, and we're just like, this is what I want to do, this is how I make it happen, and I'm going to move forward. I think when we're living too much in the past, it just mixes things up a little too much. And I think that thought process with people is changing. So anyway, yeah, karma is great. I love talking about it. It's really fun. And it's a subject that's, especially when you're talking about the Hindu philosophy and Indian philosophy, it's been around for a really long time,
Yes,
right?
yes, it
Yeah, it's an
has.
ancient philosophy.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily, follow something because it's ancient, or
Right.
because my predecessors and my ancestors, shall we say, followed the same thing. Uh, I'm still trying to use my cortex, my frontal lobe, to
Right.
be able to judge the universe and reality as I
Yeah.
see it. So I think. Do you have something, just a closing statement, shall we say?
I think my best closing statement is to check out my new book, because it's all
Yes.
about everything we just talked about today. And it's going to really help to clear up some of the questions about how we move forward and move through some of that karma that you were talking about, but really helping you to open up your mind, your brain, your heart, and your adrenal system for energy, which is the way that we can help activate the planet. When that I want this book to be all around the world so that we can really help people to shift, because we're at this huge crux of health, body, mind, and spirit, and it's a way for us to really accelerate and really just open things up, because we're at this wonderful place. So I can't wait for people to read it, and thank you for having me on the show and letting me
Thank you.
talk about it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shimek, or Lulu.
You're welcome.
Whatever you prefer.
Yeah, Dr. Lulu's great.
Dr. Lulu, that's nice. It sounds like a kind of a Barbie doll, Dr. Lulu. But Dr. Shimek, yeah, it's more mature, grown up. Yeah.
Right. I'm a combination of those two things. I think I'm the little child always wanting to have fun and explore. And then I'm also the doctor, the science part of me that combines those two together.
We always have to keep the spark of, or the fire of curiosity.
That's right.
Lit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Bye.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye.